Hey, it's D here. I'm about to do some guitar myth busting, and I've got these guitars here, like half a dozen of them, and they are completely different guitars, different materials. Some are set necks, some are bolt-ons, and pickups are a bit different. Most of them are actives, but there's a passive one or two, and I won't tell you in detail what kind of guitars they are. The idea is that first I'm going to take this recorder right here, and I'm just gonna record two stereo tracks of the guitar unamplified, and there should be great differences in the unamplified sound. They sound totally different to me unamplified. What I'm gonna do then is I'm going to play them through this Marshall here, my JVM, and despite the hordes of buttons it has, it's very simple tube amp. And I'm gonna play it in clean mode, basically, with a little bit of crunch that I think will bring out the differences rather than hide them. And I won't use any pedals or anything in between, so that you can only hear the amplified sound. And then it will be very interesting to see whether it is possible to notice from the amplified sound which guitar is which when you compare them with the unamplified tracks. And I'm going to line them up in Cubase and see how it works, and if you can detect any differences in sustain, and whether the actual sound waves look different even, and what differences are there really. Let's go on. Okay, I did the initial recordings, and I tried to be extra careful to place the guitar to exactly the same distance from the recorder when I did it, and at this point I have to say that there were very little difference between the guitars. Actually, when I play them one by one, it feels like there are enormous differences acoustically with the guitars, but that's not the case really here. I'll be interested to see how it works on the recorder, but there were a couple of guitars that had a better sustain and better ring, maybe brighter sound to them, and a couple that were significantly darker feeling. I don't know if they even picked up with the microphone even unamplified, but let's go on with the amplified sounds then. Okay, now I'm in the studio and I'm examining these sound files here. Let's see how they look. And here you go. These are the clean sounds. It goes from like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they do sound different. I'll include the audio file in the video, but maybe you can listen to it from the camera as well, I hope. Only the strums. Here's I set the threshold so that it decays after a certain point every time. So you can see the sustain. It is roughly the same for all of them. There's no differences in the acoustic sustain, basically, that I can see. And the gate jumps in at exactly the same moment, pretty much. The first one sounded a little bit guitar number 1 sounded a little bit brighter to me. And then to the amplified sound, and here I made a mistake. The guitar A sound, for that I realized later that I had the neck pickup also on, and you can clearly hear the difference. And also guitar C seems to have a little bit longer sustain than the others. And let's see, likely also, yeah, it's pretty clear that C and D has a great sustain. But let's hear the difference. First one is with the single coil also on, and you can hear that quite easily. And you can also see it, how it's more rounded, and there's less drive as in the ones that using the humbucker. Don't find any differences between using an active humbucker or whatever. was easy to point. There were slight differences, but I would claim that where you pick the guitar has way more importance than the actual difference in the pickups or the construction of the guitar. They all sound roughly the same to a listener when it's recorded, but when you're playing it you can feel the differences quite easily. And then here we have the entire track. It's a solo, just that. So it comes in stereo. And here we go. Guitar A. Guitar 2. Guitar 3. Guitar 4. Guitar 5. Guitar 6. Guitar 7. Guitar A. Guitar B. Guitar C. Guitar D. guitar E. Guitar F. Okay, so what can we learn with this? I don't know if I can learn anything about it. The guitars feel and sound very different when you play them solo, and it feels like they have immense differences. And then when you record them, you can notice differences. There are some quite clear differences, but it becomes really quickly unimportant when you add some pedals or any minute details to it. And one thing I noticed is that it really depends very much where do you pick the guitar on. The sound is completely different if you pick the guitar on top of the treble pickup or near the neck, and it can be completely different. And for that reason I actually used the same guitar twice. Two other guitars I used twice for this exercise. I don't know if it's possible to detect which sound clips were actually recorded with the exactly the same guitar, just changing the picking hand. And I wouldn't know from these clips. They sound a bit different from each other, but not in the way I expected. The guitar I always felt that is darker and much more mid-rangey. It's just on this recording it's completely the opposite. And I used a Telecaster, I used active pickups and really light guitars and neck with the set necks and whatever, and the results on tape are completely different than how I perceive those differences to be when I play them one by one and actually play them. Because the player clearly feels differences in the sound, but it's just everything turns upside down when you record it. The guitar I felt was dark was actually one of the brightest ones, and vice versa. And I'm so glad I wrote down the actual order, because I could never be able to detect it from here. And the guitar I used for 2 tracks sounds completely different because I simply moved my picking hand like maybe 1.5 inches towards the neck, and it sounds like a completely different guitar. So I don't know if this really reveals anything or it's definitely not scientifically valid, but in any way I would say that now I'm a firm believer that the way you play it is way more important than what the guitar actually is. I can't even notice which ones were recorded with a passive pickup and which ones were single coil or which ones were using the humbuckers or whatever. It's just impossible.